we're going to talk about RBA and data collection. This is the third of 3 webinars that we've been fortunate to do with community research, and we're going to share some practical tips and techniques which enable people to walk away with a good overview of how they might collect data and use it to showcase success.
Awesome. Oh, kapai. So we've got a bit of a presentation that we're going to move toward, and Sharon, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Kia ora. So what we're going to do today, everyone, is talk about RBA and data. We've got a 3-part webinar today, everyone. Part 3 is where we're going to be talking about data collection and use. Part 2, we're very fortunate to have our lovely wahine toa from Te Rarawa to talk about implementing RBA from an NGO perspective. And part 3, we're going to talk about the strategic use of RBA and how you might be able to use RBA in terms of planning, change management, and also social investment. It's such an important thing to not be too hard on ourselves, so I really love this slide. RBA Key Concepts, everyone. I know that all of you would have watched and re-watched several times the first 2 webinars, but in terms of the key concepts, everyone, 237 from ends to means. We're going to talk about population and performance accountability today and data collection associated with those 2 key concepts. And we're also going to talk a lot about the 3 performance measures, how much, how well is anyone better off, and talk about some of the tools that you can use to collect that data. I'm also going to highlight the 7 questions from ends to means and talk about how you can use those questions as an effective means of strategic and business planning. Now, the next slide, everyone, is just a reminder about the 3 types of performance measures. How much, how well is anyone better off? And just remember, is anyone better off equals client outcomes. And you can see there are 4 types of outcomes: skills and knowledge, attitude, opinion, behaviour, and circumstance. Now, on the right-hand side of that slide, you can see under the heading type of data codes, subjective versus objective. So remember, everyone, subjective data is about honouring the voice of your client or the opinion of your client, whereas objective data is, I don't have to rely on the voice of my client, I can get that data. It did or did not happen. I'm going to touch on that today because it's very important that we talk about the 2 data sources and what they look like in practice. All right, let's get into the good stuff there, David. We've done the RBA methodology intro, and let's look at this next slide, everyone. Love this one. So often when I'm working with clients, they go, oh, I wish I'd known that, I would have started earlier. But like the first slide that we had, it's a learning experience, everyone. We're in it together, and let's get cracking and collect that data that's really going to showcase your success. I want to talk about a couple of issues, everyone, that when we work with our clients in the RBA space, these are some of the issues associated with data definitions that people need to get right up front, because it's going to save you a lot of time and also a lot of, dare we say it, pain later on. So here are some issues that I want to talk to you about linked to data definitions. So the first point is who. So to whom does the data apply? And I know you think, oh gosh, that's really basic, but what I often find is that we don't have enough discussion either in-house or with funders to clarify who the data applies to. So when we're talking about clients, everyone, so I'm going to talk about performance measures. Remember, a person can be a client, people can be a client, so families and whānau or groups of people, and also settings. So settings like an ECE, a marae, potentially another provider, a council. So remember, we need to be really clear about to whom the data applies and be on the same page. The next point that I want to raise is the data that you're looking at, is it an indicator or a performance measure? And again, I'm still seeing a bit of confusion about these 2 types of data. So remember, everyone, an indicator is a large-scale piece of data that enables us to measure population level well-being, whereas a performance measure is a piece of data that applies to your clients. Okay, so be really clear about that, because sometimes it can trip you up. The next point here is about clarifying the type of performance measure that you're gathering. So remember, there are 3 types. How much did we do? How well did we do it? Is anyone better off? Is anyone better off equals client outcomes? How much is about the quantity of your effort? And how well is about the quality of your effort. So I really encourage you to be really clear amongst yourselves and with funders what type of performance measurement data are you collecting, because it can also inform how much of the data you're collecting and also absolutely for what purpose. The next point, everyone, is about understanding whether or not you are collecting subjective or objective data. And in our view, it's really good to have a good mix of both. But I want you to really clarify with your funders, amongst yourselves, what the mix is, because some funders actually don't want subjective data, i.e. the voice of your client. Some funders just want objective data, others want a mix, others are very happy just to have subjective data. The benefit of having both types of data is that you honour the voice, but you also have objective or data as well to have a look at your results. I'm going to touch on that again, everyone. This point, cumulative or per reporting period, is really important. And working with the Naomi and Paulette, we had a good discussion about this. You really have to talk to your funder and amongst yourselves about what type of data period, the type of data period that you're reporting on. So let me give you an example. Let's just say you saw 40 whānau, 40 clients over a year. If you were reporting data associated with the per reporting period, across quarters, you would go 10 clients Q1, 10 clients Q2, 10 Q3, 10 Q4. So that's per reporting period. It's 10, 10, 10. But if you're looking at cumulative reporting, you would report that 10 Q1, 20 Q2, 30 Q3, 40 Q4. So you can see the difference in terms of how you're reporting the data. So per reporting is 10, 10, 10 if you're looking at quarters. Cumulative reporting is 10, 20, 30, 40. So just be really careful about that, because sometimes that can trip you up and that does inform how you collect the data. The next point I want to talk about, everyone, is associated with benchmarking. So we all know benchmarking is a good thing, but the key takeaway here is that you have to benchmark apples and apples. So as a minimum, when you're reporting on your data, when you're analysing your data, you should be benchmarking against yourself and against a historical period. So for example, did we do better than last week? Did we do better than last month, the last 6 months, the last year? So you're benchmarking against yourself. But you can also benchmark against another provider or providers, for example, or you could benchmark against other regional or national data sets. But just be really careful. Sometimes if you're going to benchmark externally, you might want to hold on to that information, just see how you're going, and then showcase success after you've had a good look at it. Okay, next point is shift versus point in time data. Now this is where it starts to get a little bit tricky. I'm going to go into this more detail later on, but basically it's how do I measure and report the change? Okay, how do I measure and report the change? So shift means data which showcases change for clients over time or during the journey that they of service delivery with you. Point in time is where we just do a snapshot of the data and the change at that point in time. So I'm going to come back to that, everyone. The last 2 points here, meaning of words or phrases and unit of measure. I'm just going to go to the next slide because I've got some practical examples of this. And again, everyone, they're quite simple issues on the face of it, but if we don't get these right early on, what I've found is that, it causes my clients a lot of headaches and therefore myself. So let's look at the meaning. If you have a look at these measures, everyone, clients who report they had enough money. So you look at it, you think, oh yeah, okay, we can collect that data. But actually, what does enough money actually mean? So this is when you need to have a discussion in-house and or a discussion with the funder. Is there a threshold? Is there a range? What does that mean? So it's really important to be as specific as possible when you're designing or when you're collecting data, and obviously to make sure it's really meaningful for you. And next, have a look at that next example, please, David, where we're talking about the number and percentage of whānau who achieved something. So again, NCEA. So the word here, whānau, what does that mean? Is it an individual? Is it the collective? Is it whakapapa whānau, kaupapa whānau? Is it whānau based in a household? Again, or is it simply self-defined? So again, be really clear, nut all these issues out either with your funder or amongst yourselves, because this stuff can really trip you up if you don't get it sorted early on. What we do with some of our clients is we create a data dictionary. It can be a very simple Excel or Word table, and basically you make sure that people really clearly understand the data, the definitions, source, all those types of things. Happy to talk later on about that if you want. Unit of measure, everyone. A couple of examples there. Subtle differences, but make a huge difference. So number of clients who attended, number of appointments attended by clients. Again, they're measuring similar things, but they're different. So the unit of measure in the first are the clients. The unit of measure in the second example are the GP appointments. Again, be really clear. Get this all sorted before you go into data collection. So the next point I wanted to talk about, everyone, is looking at data tools. So I'm going to get David to put up the left-hand side of this table. So just quickly, remember subjective data, honouring the voice of the client. If we're really whānau-centric, client-centric, for me, it's really important to hear from the client's perspective whether or not they're better off in particular. So when we're capturing subjective data, we use tools that enable us to hear the voice. So surveys, focus groups, hui, whānau, maybe interviews or case management. Those are all standard examples of collecting subjective data. In the objective space, of course, you've got other ways of collecting data. So remember, objective is not reliant on the voice of the client. It either did or did not happen. So we could observe client outcomes, and when you're observing, it's really good to have triangulated observation if you can. So maybe the whānau observation, the teacher observation, the kaiarahi, the kaimahi observation, and then the client themselves. So it's quite good to try and get that level of triangulation if you can. Other tools like tests, I did or did not pass my driver's license, I did or did not pass NCEA, and then other objective ways of collecting data are event-based, so utilisation of services, things like that. So just wanted to highlight that, because when you're either designing better off data or you have received better off data from the funder in terms of they would like you to collect this, be clear if it's subjective or objective, and then that informs your choice of data tool.
So kia ora koutou, thank you for your feed in. And Sharon, let's see if we can get you operational again.
So aligning measures with questions, everyone, quite a simple statement, but very powerful. So sometimes what I see is that you agree a performance measure, but then the detail of the performance measure is not necessarily translated into the questions that you are asking. So it's a really simple thing, but please make sure that when you are collecting the data, you're actually translating those questions in your data collection methods aligned with the measures. The next point I wanted to raise, everyone, I'm just going to do a little bit of a deep dive into this one, is the use of scales and also point-in-time data. So this is where the shift versus point-in-time issue comes into play, which I talked about a little bit before. So in terms of your use of scales when you're collecting data from clients, as we know, scales can be 5-point or 10-point Likert scales, but the great thing about scales is that what you can do is you can track client outcomes over time using the scales to help you to measure the shift. So for example, if I was your client and before I came into your service, I self-rated my health status as 1, by the time I exited your service, you would really want me to self-rate my health status somewhat higher than 1, hopefully in between an 8 and a 10 or something like that. And what you can do is you can track my outcomes journey by using the scaling technique before, during, and after. Okay, so that's what we mean by shift, showing the shift and the positive change using the scaling technique. Now you compare that to the point in time data where at a particular point in time you report on, for example, the percentage of clients who report their health status is very good or excellent. So that might be clients who rated their health status between an 8 and a 10. When you're presenting that data, you're really presenting a snapshot of the proportion of clients who have self-rated an 8 and a 10. So it gives you a good look at the current state of those clients at that point in time. But that data doesn't tell you about whether or not any of those clients who currently rate themselves as an 8 or a 10 have actually experienced a shift. You know, did they come in as a 1 and now they're an 8? So there's 2 ways that you can showcase change using scales versus a point in time. So have a good talk amongst yourselves and with your funder about that. Other tips for tools, everyone, keep it simple. So sometimes you can get your subjective data through case management and engagement versus a survey. So see what works best for you. And last but not least, everyone, quality, quality, quality. Can't talk more highly about this. You know it yourselves. Reach is important. So how many clients you can get to provide data is really important, because reach is about showing how well you're doing for the majority of your clients. And of course ethics kicks in, issues like privacy, clients knowing their rights in terms of data collection, very critical. Now you've seen this before when you've done the RBA 101, but just quickly, every time you present your program and you're reporting success, I really encourage you to highlight the population accountability piece first. And in particular, what is your role as part of that larger strategy? So basically, how do you contribute to population wellbeing, community level wellbeing? And once you've set that strategic thing, then go on to talk about your service program or initiative and your how well, better off measures. If you don't set that strategic thing and then talk about performance and how well you're delivering generally, your audience will only see half of the picture. And so what you're doing is you're reinforcing your great at client outcomes, but you're not reinforcing the fact that actually you've got a critical role to play at a strategic level as well. And that's really important to remind people and funders about that. If you don't have the population piece, everyone, just use this shortcut. Just say what the population outcome is and then talk about the role that you have to play at a delivery level. The Clear Impact software, everyone, you might have seen this before. I encourage you to go and have a look. It's a piece of software which enables you to track change and also report to funders over time. Okay, I love this statement, everyone. Continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. Look, we always aspire to perfection, don't we? But continuous improvement is part of our journey. So don't be too hard on yourselves, everyone, if something doesn't go to plan. Just keep going, kia kaha. All right, just a light touch on this, everybody, using the 7 questions. The power of RBA is more than just reporting. I just want to remind everyone that actually what we need to do is we need to apply the 7 questions so we can actually turn the data curve in the right direction. So before we get stuck into action planning, we actually unpack the data. So you've seen this before. If you haven't, you can come back to us on the Facebook and other things. But it's very important to use the 7 questions to drive performance. It's not just a reporting tool. And thank you. So actually, David, you're enticing the audience for part 3 here, which, because I've just finished my part, everyone, I'm going to hand back to the lovely team at Community Research to take us to the NGO part of the presentation. Kia ora.
Oh, kia ora, Sharon. That was amazing on a range of different levels. One, thank you for being so flexible and amazing with our technical challenges. And also thank you to our audience. One of the beautiful things about going live and having multiple moving parts is that sometimes things go a bit skew. So we're really grateful that we've got an amazing team that launched in behind us. So thank you, everybody. Now, one of the great things about data and understanding the fundamentals of RBA is we've just gone through the theory and all the different elements that you need to consider as a practitioner, as a provider, and also if you're in a position of having to report to stakeholders or others. So this information that we've just received is quite relevant right across the board, and in particular how to measure effectively, collect the right kind of data, and ensure that you can make sense of it first and foremost, and that you can also have the ability to measure your impact, not just what you're doing with clients, but also the contribution that you're making to Aotearoa as a whole, or the population that you're trying to impact. So tēnā koe, Sharon. She'll be coming back at the end of this session to dive deeply into the final third part around RBA. But that's a beautiful segue to our two tuahine from Te Raroa who have absorbed the theory of RBA and have also had to then implement that with whānau on the ground. And so, of course, ngā mihi anō kia koutou no Te Raroa. And one of the beautiful things that I'm aware of this work is that RBA is not just influencing the social services arm, but also all the wider mahi that the iwi are engaging in. As we heard from our team heard from Bronwyn Hunt this morning, how it's also influencing researchers, influencing the strategic decision making of the iwi. So I'm going to pass it over to you both to share with us what have you learned in applying RBA to your practice, and what impact has it had on your services as well. Kia ora korua.
So we prepared some little slides so we could be cool like Sharon. Yeah, so it's been an amazing journey for us, and we thought we'd talk 2 slides because there's so much to talk about and so much to cover. But yeah, I think David, if you just start with the slides and we'll talk to them as we roll through, and we'll tell you when you need to carry on. So the first slide is our whakatauki. Kia au ki te whakapono me aroha tētahi ki tētahi. Great, okay, so implementing RBA, results-based accountability. So the first thing we worked on was the population outcomes framework, and part of that journey was first understanding what the population outcomes were for us. So we did a lot of research about it, and then we got our funder service specs and their key indicators, and that helped us understand how it would all fit and how it would all align, in particular with our organisation, of course, and most importantly, how it would be used to drive our delivery. From there, we worked on the client outcomes framework, and the good old map and gap is an excellent approach here, and it was very, very helpful. So we used pre-existing KPIs and PMs that our funders had already set for us, so there's no flexibility on that at the start of the journey. But what we did was we broke them down into the how much, the how well, is anyone better off, and then seed them as well. And we also did lots and lots of research. So we, used sources such as Te Kupunga, Statistics New Zealand, Pai Order, Whānau Order. I actually can't remember the last time I read for pleasure. It's all been about research. And this was really valuable to the co-design process. And then we went on to socialising with the team. And it was really important to keep an open dialogue. All our discussions, we tried to use the RBA jargon as much as we could, just so they could get familiarised with it. And it was really important to make sure our team felt safe and were allowed to ask as many questions as they wanted. And we provided support and training regularly through this process.
Cool. So once we'd established our performance measures, then we moved on to reviewing our data collection tools. And we want to make use of what was already existing and then make changes for the areas where we didn't have that information. Here is my tip number 1. It's really important to create tools alongside your team that are going to be user-friendly, and this is where training is quite helpful. From there, we look at scorecard mentoring or coaching. We received training in how to set up the scorecards, build our performance measures into the program, so we were able to track our performance. We received coaching as well, and there's also some really good videos and help online as well. And in regards to reporting, the scorecard is very helpful there. We're able to showcase our successes and use the data to drive decision making. Kia ora, David.
Oh, he's onto it.
Okay, so what works? Tip number 2, socialise the project as much as you can. Our initial approach was holding an RBA 101 session with Sharon, and we put an invitation out across the organisation for different ones to come and participate and learn a little bit more, get a feel for the framework. From there, we built a dedicated team, which we took considerations for the realities in our workplace. So Naomi here was identified as the lead for implementing RBA, with the aim to start small with a few of the teams across the organisation. And she also had the support of a wider team to help socialise the project. We've had to go through a few trainings with a mix of internal and external to ensure that we were all on the same page in regards to the common language, in particular understanding terms like 237 and the best mate slide to begin with. I can recall the how well one being a tricky one for some of the team. And so here's tip number 3. To get around this, we had a lot of open kōrero, so we could move forward together and all on the same page. We're lucky to have resources such as the What Works website, YouTube, community research, and of course the Shea Pita team. It's important to ensure that the source is reliable, so I'd suggest following up with the websites and links recommended in today's kōrero as a starting point. Communication, it's always ongoing. It's really important to maintain clarity, consistency and understanding around the common language, and just check in with each other just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Kia ora, David.
So you would have seen Sharon popped up the scorecard little pic before, and so it's been really awesome. We were able to develop customized reporting tools, and so that was things like online surveys. Each team had their own what do they call it, workbooks, and this was a little bit of a challenge because we already have pre-existing data collection tools that the ministry provides you with. So 90% of the time they're online data tools, but we were able to make them marry up and work together. So that was cool. So we're using the online scorecard now, and it's been really useful. It has provided that central collection point for data, and it allows us to view that data in real time, which has been awesome, and track changes and all that sort of stuff. And the scorecards help us measure performance. This has been really helpful because some of our staff work in quite an innovative space with a lot of kaupapa Māori stuff, and it allows for that low cost, no cost option, because we can see stuff happening in real time, the shift, the point in time, and we can adjust our delivery to that quite quickly. So that's been really helpful. And the scorecards have helped us to measure the performance and using the data to drive our decision making as well. And and the teams will use these scorecards as part of their performance improvement. And this has been really cool because we've had some great conversations with the teams now, and a very reflective practice has come out of this. And so they really want to know they are making a difference. Is anyone actually better off? And it's been awesome. Like the change in the staff as well. It's just blows my mind. So happy. Oh, yep, next slide.
Yes. Okay, I think that everyone has a role to play in the implementation of the framework, and it's important to acknowledge everyone's valuable input into the design. recognising that teams are at the coalface and have a wealth of knowledge that can add value to building the performance measures and developing the data collection tools. Management, governance and funders also have a wealth of knowledge and can provide insight in the population level. This is something that we continue to work through as we familiarise more with the framework. Support happens across multiple levels, and it's a great opportunity to utilise the 7 questions as an assessment tool to track how you're doing and to have those turn-the-curve conversations leading to improved, better-off outcomes. It's also great, and Sharon in her slide earlier on, it is great to acknowledge your start point and build on it as you go.
Yeah.
I believe our efficiency has improved immensely, and there is a real clear purpose on how we can improve leading into the future. Yeah. It's also very, very important to think about the whānau journey to ensure you're going to be delivering to the best of your ability alongside each other, a team effort with the aim of working towards whānau well-being. Traditional reporting would look mainly at the how much and how well. Tip number 4, with this framework we have the ability to really consider the whānau journey utilising the SABCs. Think about what they're gaining in these areas as a result of the programs.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, lessons learned. Oh, I could have a giant list here, but we'll just talk about the main 3. So agencies need a common language and approach. So we were fortunate enough that our funders, we have quarterly monitoring visits with them. And so we were able to have them in the room with us. And we had really good discussions about where we were moving and what our RBA journey looked like. And really created conversations where we could explore our performance measures, particularly the ones we knew that would suit our whānau best, because, you know, we work with these people every day, so we know what their journey is as well. So that was awesome. And our funders are really on board with this process as well, and they've been very supportive. And we need to work towards providing outcomes, and we need the support from our agencies, and we have the full backing of our organisation. They have really supported us, provided us with all the resources we need, and you know, implementing the framework has been a really big change for our organisation, and it's quite exciting for us. And I think what was really important, and I think Paulette said it earlier, was it was about putting the heart of our whānau first. And it's been great having these conversations, and yeah, we actually enjoy sharing our journey because we want people to learn from what we've experienced. And yeah, and I think another really important thing was is in some instances we were almost a little bit more advanced or proficient in RBA than our funders. And that kind of gave us a step ahead of them because, yeah, I can't quite explain it, but it was really important that we knew we were on our game and the funders could see it. And so, you know, they have made comments about the huge shift and change with our delivery, and I'm quite proud to say that we're a little bit ahead of the game now, so it's cool. And definitely get good professional support. I like the slide Sharon shared about the, I can't even remember which slide it was, but it's been a really, really challenging journey, but so exciting and so worthwhile. And it's just, I can't praise Sharon and her team enough. They have been absolutely amazing. And yeah, there's a lot of effort required, but it's like everything. You put the effort in, you totally reap the rewards. And I can honestly say I feel that's where we are now. I think that's us.
Hopefully that's been helpful for our whānau out there.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's great to get an insight as to how you take the theory and apply it on the ground with whānau. So I think that's really important. And to be part of transformative change. So I've got a few questions that I'd really love to pose to you three in regards to how long have you been implementing RBA? Like at what point in time did you introduce the RBA methodology, and then to what services were you putting the RBA lens across?
I'll answer this one. So I started this all by myself. I didn't have any support, and I had literally YouTubed, Googled, read the book, and found out as much as I possibly could about RBA, and tried to implement it all by myself. And it was really scary. And so that was a year ago now, and then we decided as an organisation, no, we need proper professional support, and that's when Sharon came in. Maybe you could talk now, Sharon.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that it's the services, and what services, sorry, did you apply the RBA lens to? Like, is it your whānau ora services, tamariki ora, social service program, the rangatahi program?
Okay, so we started quite small, so this was really important that we didn't try to get too carried away. So we chose a small portion of our social service side, but it was more about our youth program, Tūturu Tangata. We applied it to our KADS, that's the drug and alcohol program, nutrition and physical activity, youth justice, direct services. So it was a little bit of a mixture of what we had, but not the entire social services branch, because that would have just been too much all in one hit.
I think it's important to note for a range of reasons. One, in regards to the timeline. So in 12 months, look at how much transformation has happened internally as a result. Potentially you've said how it's improved performance from staff, and if they're proactively seeking ways to improve and measure their performance, I think that's quite significant. And then the third part, which I also think is really, really interesting here, is how you communicate with agencies. So I loved hearing that you're ahead of the curve and ahead of the game in regards to being able to effectively measure and articulate what you're doing. But I'm hoping that over the long term, rather than having multiple agencies and reporting to multiple agencies, you can utilise your scorecard to be able to evidence this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing. And in fact, the agencies as our treaty partner, you also need to start to up your game in regards to measuring effectively. So well done. What are your reflections on that, Sharon?
Toru time lucky.
Toru time lucky. But we're talking about wahine toa, which I enjoy. So go.
Okay. I just wanted to say about the whānau, the wahine toa. They were amazing. So dedicated to leadership and, putting it all on the line in terms of the passion behind ensuring that they could measure whānau success, which was amazing. So leadership was critical, but they also embarked on a change management project or program themselves within their own organisation. So I'm going to touch on that in part 3, but I did really want to mihi to both Paulette and Naomi and Te Rarawa, because they've done an amazing job, and I encourage anybody out there, if you want a trip to the North whānau, contact them and they'll look after you.
Oh, no, she's got no sound.
Later on. What we'd love to do, though, is we now need to move into part 3 of Sharon's kōrero. And aroha mai, Sharon, your time in particular is just going to be coming down because we've got around 12 minutes left, and we've got quite a bit in our program to cover off. So adding flexibility to the mix. I know you've got 3 parts that you want to cover off with whānau as well. So the mic is back to you. Kia ora e hoa.
Reasonably quickly, but having said that, the slides are available, and also just feel free to give us a call or contact me through community research. Okay, so let's have a look at the strategic use of RBA, and I'm going to talk about the relationship between RBA and planning. So a lot of people come to me and they say, hey, how do we use RBA to inform planning? So in this diagram here, you can see if we're thinking strategically about population or community well-being, that's a beautiful fit for population accountability. So population accountability, remember, enables us to look at the population level well-being and enables us to measure success at that more global level. And also remember that population accountability is about multiple partners working together for a common purpose. So it sits beautifully with community-wide strategy. Whereas performance accountability is really about how are our clients any better off. That's the ultimate. And so performance accountability sits beautifully within business planning, team action planning contexts. And the diagram before you shows you the relationship between strategic and business, population and performance. And if you keep it really simple, you can see the logic flowing from left to right. So just quickly, if the population outcome, and I borrowed one from Te Rarawa, is te ohanga whānau economically secure in the Te Rarawa geographic region, the experience might be whānau have long-term and stable jobs. The indicator could be the employment rate at a geographic level, and one of the strategies might be employment brokering partnerships and services. So if we nested that in your strategic plan, then when we turned to operationally how you contributed to achieving the population outcome as an organisation, that's when you highlight the programs that are linked to the strategies that you're delivering. So here we've got an employment readiness program, and of course when we're talking about programs, services or initiatives, we use performance measures to measure success. So we have how much, how well and better off measures there as an example. So I hope you can see the logic from left to right, from strategy to operational, and how you can incorporate population and performance. The next slide that I want to show you is just another version of the population to performance slide. And this slide most of you wouldn't have seen, it's a new one. And on the left-hand side, you've got the population piece. So we have population results and outcomes. We have indicators. What this slide is showing is that you have to incorporate the turn the curve thinking. So that's our 7 questions at a population level. When you incorporate that, you unpick the indicators, and it helps you to understand what your strategies are. Once you've understood your strategies, which have associated programs, then what you do is you look at the business side of your organisation. So again, that's where we look at the performance accountability piece. We look at our programs, our performance measures, we apply our turn the curve thinking, 7 questions, and then we get our actions. So this slide is another way of showing the logic between population and performance, and how RBA can inform your strategy and your choice of programs when delivering. Love this one, everyone. So we all know that when we engage in change management, you know, it's challenging, it's hard yakka, and Naomi and Paulette were talking a little bit about that. So RBA is a great tool which helps you with your change management. So I want to talk to you about some of the core aspects of change management. Thank you, David. So some of those core aspects are a sense of urgency, hearts and minds, communication and resistance. So what you can do is you can use RBA to help you in that space. So for a sense of urgency, and as Naomi and Paulette said, you know, they're using their indicator and performance measurement data, they're creating baselines, they're creating graphs, and they're using that to create a sense of urgency by saying, hey, you know, here are some data that isn't turning in the right direction, and we want it to turn in the right direction. So we're creating that sense of urgency. Hearts and minds, very important part. So population outcomes are great for hearts and minds conversations. Remember, a population outcome is a narrative statement of well-being for a population of your choice. So great population outcomes actually are like magnets. You know, they draw partners to you, to the kaupapa, to the overall population or community outcome that you're seeking to contribute to achieving. So that's great hearts and minds stuff, and also better off measures as well. When you're explaining, yeah, we want to improve these client outcomes, those are great hearts and minds statements to draw partners. For communications, everyone, common language critical. Naomi and Paulette talked about that. You know, we need a common language in the outcome space, because if we're talking past each other, provider to funder, funder to provider, provider to provider, provider to community, we're just not going to get anywhere. We're just going to end up having distorted conversations which don't help anyone, let alone whānau. So common language is important, everyone, in the in that space, in the communications. Resistance. Okay, so we're always going to get resistance. I love it when you come across it, actually, because it's explicit and you can see it, so you can do something about it. So all of the above, everyone. Visualization is key, and also communicating success and continuous improvement is critical as well. All of those concepts built into RBA. I want to talk a little bit now about RBA and your organisation's existing outcomes framework. Just quickly, David, if you put everything up, the key takeaway here, everyone, is that you should use your existing data to showcase success. And so, for example, if you're using PCOMs, the outcomes rating scale and the session rating scale are actually better off data. So just simply map that data into the RBA framework and you're good to go. For the logic model, your short-term outcomes, if you get some data associated with those, that's better off data for your clients. So again, just map it into the RBA framework and you're good to go. Last but not least, everyone, I just want to wrap up with a conversation around RBA and social investment. So as you know, social investment is a really important concept which the government is heralding. There is a new social investment agency. I encourage you to look at their website. They've got a lot of information there. So there are critical components of social investment, David. I'll just get you to put those up here. Using data smarter, measuring effectiveness, measuring long-term outcomes, and understanding fiscal implications. So how can you use RBA as part of your ability to show that? So for using data, RBA does focus a lot on quantitative data. Qualitative data is still very important. I encourage you to use it to pair with the quantitative data, but it's all about understanding indicators, performance measures, and turning those curves. Measuring effectiveness, is anyone better off? The most important performance measure, are our clients better off? So clearly you're measuring effect, not just effort. So just you're measuring effect, not just effort. Very important point there. Is anyone better off? Is effect. The next point there, David, if you could just put the slide back up for me, please. We're talking about long-term outcomes. Long-term outcomes are actually population level accountability. So you're looking at tracking indicator data, system level data. We're not talking about that today, but we've touched on it briefly in another webinar. And also, is anyone better off? And using that data to feed into your decision making. Naomi and Paulette talked a lot about that. Last but not least, understanding fiscal implications, everyone. RBA data is an input into your value for money formula. So whatever your formula is, you can use the data that you get out of RBA as an input into that. So that's the end of the slides, everyone, for part 3. I'm sorry if it was a little bit rushed, but I know that Jan and others will be able to facilitate looking at this information post this webinar. I wish you all the best. Just one more slide, please, David, is the one that I wanted to end on about, we're all here because we're passionate about what we do, and we want to offer you in this space if we can. Kia ora koutou katoa.
Welcome to What Works. This website can help you figure out what difference you and your organisation are making. Take TUI, for example. TUI is currently under some pressure, swirling in questions, challenging his organisation's very existence. Are we making a difference for the people we serve? Could we be more effective? How can we show real results? TUI's organisation runs a program designed to help unemployed young people develop work skills. Now TUI's being asked to prove that what they're doing is helping, but he doesn't really know how to go about it. What Works has a series of tools designed to make this easier. You're one step ahead of TUI, given you've been introduced to us already. Our homepage contains some useful information to help you begin. The Consider tab is a good place to get some basic information about what evaluation is and how to do it properly. When it comes to proving that what you're doing is having impact, you need to walk through some basic steps. The Get Started tab contains a number of resources to help you formulate a good evaluation plan, from defining what you need to evaluate to making sure the findings get used. Now that TUI has identified what he needs to know, he can move on to choosing some data gathering and evaluation tools. The Tools tab is divided into 2 sections. The first is designed to help you choose the right framework or approach. The Methods, Tools, Techniques section contains the different ways of collecting data. TUI's stuck for where to go next and needs help to choose the right tool. To help with that, we have a handy Tools and Approaches matrix, which contains an overview of popular tools and approaches that can be filtered in various ways. TUI thinks he's found a good framework and toolset that matches his organization's evaluation plan, but we'll have a bit of a look through the various case studies under the Stories tab first. It contains a selection of user stories about organizations' experiences using particular tools, so you can see what has worked for them. We're always looking for new stories. If you have an example to share, please contact Community Research. TUI can see organizations similar to his using the approach he picked, so he can see how it's going to work for him. With a good plan and tool set in place, TUI is well on the way to answering those original questions. Most importantly, TUI's organization will build good evidence about their outcomes and learn from the evidence gathered. What works best when organizations like TUI's share their experiences with the wider community so other groups can benefit from the information too. The Share tab contains guidance on becoming a learning organization and ways to share what you learn with others. There are tips on how to present your findings to service users, your board, funders, and the general public. TUI is going to take some more time to explore the website fully. We encourage you to take some time to have a look through the resources and see if they can help you with your work.